Hi everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Arnold Okello, and today I'll be introducing you guys to Richard Carney, a community witness who gave evidence in the 2020 Royal Commission into the Victoria's mental health system. Richard's story helps us to understand the mental health system through a trauma-informed lens and highlights how stigma, powerlessness, and lived experiences can shape someone's journey through distress and recovery. So we'll dive right in. Who is Richard Carney? So Richard is a peer support worker and lived experience advocate. His journey with mental health began in 1997 during a psychotic episode when he was 28 years old. He was experiencing delusion, like believing he was receiving messages through numbers, and became disconnected with reality. This led to confrontation at home and ultimately police intervention. Richard was involuntarily then admitted to a psychiatric hospital where he experienced physical and chemical restraints. What stood out for me throughout Richard's story is not just the confusion of the psychosis, the lack of communication and dignity he was offered during the process. This experience left a deep impact. It was not just the distress of mental illness, but the empowering way the system responded to him that shaped how he saw the healthcare system. Richard's story can be best understood through a trauma-informed explanatory framework. This framework shifts the focus from what is wrong with you to what has happened to you. Such as Richard's delusions were not meaningless. They were his reality at the time. Rather than being met with compassion, his experiences was treated with force and control. A trauma-informed model recognizes that this kind of response can re-traumatize individuals, disconnect them from their recovery. Instead of validating Richard's pain or creating a sense of safety, the system actions isolated him even more. If we were to look at this through a trauma-informed lens, this would mean, Richard getting explained the scenario to him, giving him choice and offering him connection. So this contrasts with the more traditional biomedical framework, which might focus only on symptoms, diagnosis, and medication without understanding the broader context of someone's distress. So after leaving the hospital, Richard began receiving support from community-based services. Support workers helped with everyday tasks such as like grocery shopping and managing bills. And this gave him some structure during this vulnerable time Richard was having. Even though these supports were limited during his time, this gave Richard a space to begin rebuilding independence. But his biggest shift came when he became a peer support worker himself. Through that role, he found purpose, identity, and connection. Richard believes that peer workers offer something professionals often cannot. And that is, Richard believes real lived experiences, authentic connection, hope that people can get better. He described peer workers offering something beyond what a psychiatrist or a psychologist can offer, rather than over a 10-minute appointment. It's more about connection and actually being present and having conversations human to human. Richard pointed out that often peer workers are undervalued, seen as less capable than professionals. He calls for peers to be embedded meaningfully in services, not just as token support, but as leaders and collaborators as well. Richard's story reveals how cynicism operates in the mental health system. Cynicism is the prejudice or discrimination against people with mental illness. It's structural force that assume those in distress are dangerous, irrational, and incapable. From the moment Richard was detained, Richard stated that he felt stripped of autonomy, not included in any decision making. Even after his recovery, he found that people with lived experiences were often excluded from leadership and not seen as equal contributors in mental health spaces. Richard highlighted the need for a cultural shift, one that values lived experiences as expertise and build services for that reflect empathy, understanding, and dignity. Richard also points out that many professionals unknowingly contribute to this stigma by not reflecting on their own biases or engaging meaningfully with people who've walked through the system. Richard's key message to the Royal Commission is this: we must design services with not for people with lived experiences. Richard advocates for trauma-informed, relationship-based co-design where people with lived experiences help shape services at every level. Long-term supports, not just crisis intervention, but meaningfully ongoing relationship that help people rebuild their lives. Richard believes that services should empower people to lead their recovery and not just follow instructions. Richard reminds us that recovery isn't linear, and the connection, safety, and validation make the biggest differences in people's lives. I believe Richard's story is powerful because it mirrors experiences of so many others. It challenges us to ask ourselves, are our mental health services truly helping, or are they doing more harm than good? When we ignore lived experiences, rely too heavily on control, and devalue empathy, we build systems that isolate instead of heal, which brings me to care versus cure. Care versus cure is an analogy that I saw while doing some research on Richard, and it talks about how doctors come in to quickly fix you up very quickly, when nurses actually spend that time and give you the care that you need and actually spend that time with you to support you through your recovery. Richard's story shows us what's possible. Through peer work, advocacy, and sharing his voice, he's helped create a space for more compassionate, human-centered mental health system. To conclude Richard's story, there's a clear call for system change, where Richard teaches us that trauma-informed care, lived experiences and leadership and peer support aren't just add-ons. Richard truly believes that they're very essential for making a change in someone's life who's having a psychosis episode or a mental health episode. Richard challenges us to move away from a system that does things to people and not towards one that builds with. He wants us to move towards a system that wants us to have a system that builds alongside people who are having a mental health episode, because Richard truly believes that even so that they are in a chaotic and a disillusioned space, Richard believes that we should have a system that truly is working with them, not just doing things for them. As a future professional, we need to center empathy, collaboration, and lived experiences in everything we do. I believe the Royal Commission has opened the door for us now, future professionals. Now it's up to us to carry these lessons forward into the people that we'll be supporting later on in our future endeavors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my assignment. Thank you. Bye.